Brandon Moreno switching things up and going over to Glory MMA and Fitness, and a rematch with Figgy Smalls and Mexico's own. In a bit of doubt, we have a big time fight coming up this weekend for a couple of guys looking to plant their flag atop the hill that is the next title shot at flyweight. It is Bullet Askar Askarov, the undefeated man who has a draw against the now former champion Brandon Moreno in his UFC debut, taking on Don't Blink Kai France, who just picked up a big-time first-round knockout win over Cody Garbrandt his last time out. Matt, after Kai France won that fight, which was not that long ago, we go back, and it was, 2 months and a week ago. You look at it, and talking to Joe Rogan, these were his exact words. I told you I was going to answer a lot of questions tonight, and that's what I did. I know I'm the best in the world, and taking out a former champion makes me, it just puts me right in line for the next title shot. And guess what? Didn't mean a damn thing. And for Askar Askarov, his last time out, he fought a guy coming off of 2 title shots, and he got absolutely beaten senseless in both of them. And Joseph Benavidez, and what did Askar Askarov do? I know it's by decision. He beat him very soundly, and he looked improved on the feet. So for Askarov, you would have thought, okay, a win the way he was able to do it against Benavidez, maybe you get a title shot. Up this high, undefeated, a lot of hype, incredible grappler, and we'll get to that. But then he gets booked in a fight against Alex Perez in the summer, and Askarov's injured, so he's out of the fight, and Perez does the dance of I'm going to fight Matt Schnell, and then I'm going to fight Matt Schnell again. For Askarov, a long time off. Now he gets Kai France. The other thing, too, that I'm sure hindered a title opportunity, you can see it on screen, Askarov missed weight for the fight against Benavidez at 127, so some question marks there. Not like he's been unprofessional in the past, not like weight misses have been a big issue.
But he is a huge guy for this weight class, and it is something that I'm always concerned with.
And much bigger than Kai France in this fight. And that was the big talking point in Kai France's fight against Garbrandt was, wow, Garbrandt, you knew, if he dialed it in, he could be a flyweight. Probably not the best time to do it after you get finished a lot of bantamweight, but you knew that he was going to be a bigger fighter. And for Kai France, he just, once he figured out his range and where he could plant that overhand right, it was all she wrote.
But again, I go back, boxing and MMA have a lot more in common than people would like to admit. And go back to the Garbrandt fight. One of my more confident picks that Kai France is going to be able to beat him. Because you have a guy who has a bad shin with a lot of losses at 135 who thought, hey, let's take another 10 pounds off my frame. Let's see if I'm more durable. It's like what I said about Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker moved weight one time. You can do it once. Then he did it twice, and we saw what happened. It's not a good idea to keep on changing your weight because it's just such a last resort, it feels like, to switch your career up. Now, against Askar Askarov, he will be the much bigger guy. Askarov will be against Kai France. But he's going to oddly be the slower guy too, and that's the weird thing about this matchup. Askarov's going to have a lot of the benefits of being the bigger guy, but there's a lot of weaknesses that come along with that too. And again, this is sort of the boxing mindset of it, because who hits harder one punch for one punch? I know a lot of people are probably going to think Kai France, but just the way Askarov can lead guys into his straight shots, he hits pretty hard. I'm not ready to say Askarov hits harder the more I started thinking about that point. I'll say Kai France is at least the faster guy, but they both have very respectable power on the feet. I keep on looking at this fight, though, and looking at all the Kai France matchups in the past. He always faces adversity, no matter what fight he is in. And yes, his record is a little salty. He's got quite a few losses for someone who has as many wins as he does. But when you look at Kai France, you kind of have to bring up Matt Brown, whose fight we just broke down. When you fight the best of the best for the majority of your career, yeah, your record might not look great afterwards, but let's break down some of those fights. He had a really close fight with Brandon Moreno, and we're Brandon Moreno guys on this channel. I think we picked him to beat Figueiredo, 2 of the 3 times, if not all 3? But that was a really close fight, and Moreno was able to land a lead head kick a lot off his combinations, but Kai France was able to stay very competitive later on into that fight, and ever since he has improved a lot. And then I go back to the Askarov fight against Moreno too. That was a weird fight, and I know it was a draw. I don't often say this. I felt like Brandon Moreno won that fight quite comfortably.
Most people did, yeah.
The last round I felt was a 10-8 because we've never really seen Askarov be controlled on the mat before. We've seen Kai France get controlled on the mat many times. But with Askarov, that was weird because that was the first time we had ever seen him in compromising positions on the mat. Again, not saying that's something that's going to come up in this fight, but it's never a position I thought we'd see him struggle in at the UFC level. So it was just sort of an interesting thing that we saw in that fight against Brandon Moreno. But again, we're talking about Brandon Moreno, former champion and one of the best grapplers in this division. I just think this fight's so much fun because on the feet, could Askarov knock out Kai France? I mean, he could, but could Kai France knock out Askar Askarov like we saw Ilia Topuria knock out Jai Herbert? Yeah, and I think that's what makes this fight so much fun.
So you look at this one, and again, a few weeks ago for Askarov, he's been training at the PI, a couple of different rounds there with Otman Zaitsar, where are the potatoes, pal? Magomed Magomedov, hell of a fighter. You've got Albert Duraev, oddly enough, and Roman Dolidze. That picture was today. A few weeks ago, he's got Zuruk Adashev and Timur Valiev there as well. He's also born deaf, and he can hear 20% of sounds, according to the internet now, and that's just absolutely crazy. I mean, to make it this far in the sport, former ACB champ, the reigning, the defending, he defended that belt a couple of different times. He has a Twister win on his record.
And when audible instructions from your coach during the fight are like a big part of the sport, like it just speaks to how good Askar really is.
Yeah, I mean, this guy can change up his game plan on the fly. If I have to strike a little bit more, 100%. He can do it, and that's the thing. Out of Askarov, he's under 30. He continues to get better at his striking. He's not near as good a striker as Kai Kara-France, but he continues to improve, and I love to see that. Like, some people, you get to the big show, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm good at this. I'm stagnant now, and I never get any better. And I like what I've seen out of Askarov as his fights have gone on. I know we saw a diminished version of Joe B, and that was a retirement fight, and it didn't go well for Benavidez in that one. But the counter to it is Askarov did look really good in that fight. For Kai Kara-France, diminished value of Garbrandt, possibly, but Kara-France looked really good in that fight. And again, if I look at the last 5 fights for Kara-France, because he's a much more active guy, a loss to Moreno, a win over Tyson Nam, who happens to be a pretty good wrestler in his own right, that wild AF fight against Brandon Royval that he did lose, the wild AF fight against Sergio Bontorin.
From 10-8 to winning.
Yeah, that was really crazy. So ultimately, Matt, again, both these guys, very, very good. For Kara-France, definitely a better level of competition. That might sound weird. Better level of competition outside of the UFC. A loss to Marc Mugen-Striegel. A loss to Danaa Bakary.
If they did that rematch today, though, I'm very confident Kara-France would win.
No way, Jose.
I know.
And then a loss to Pantoja on The Ultimate Fighter. But again, these are good fighters. They've all made it to the UFC, and Kara-France faced them outside of the UFC. So again, I absolutely love this fight, Matt. We talk about the odds here. Askarov, open to -200 favorite. -327 is the comeback on best fight odds as of today. Kai Kara-France open +170s, +255. If we have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to say over under 60% Kai Kara-France.
I think Askarov will still be the favorite.
Nah, rats. 1,058 total votes, 79% Askarov, 81% by decision. For the 21% that have Kara-France, 67% by knockout. So again, people, not that torn, but kind of torn, I guess. Askarov, very much the favorite in this one. Honestly, again, Askarov with the win over Benavidez, I scratch my head. Maybe he gets a title shot. Kara-France knocks out Garbrandt. I know it's just a name. I know he's not in the division, but when you win a fight like that on a pay-per-view, like a big-time pay-per-view, I would have thought at least we're going to get consideration. And you consider it, too. I mean, we've had big-time flyweight fights not that long ago, and then this one ends up like, you know, Askarov, UFC 259 against Benavidez. Kara-France, UFC 269 against Garbrandt. And now, on a Columbus Fight Night, these guys could be fighting in a title eliminator.
What's both guys' side piece Pantoja doing this whole time? Because it feels like he's the odd one out right now. Because in every division, there's always more than one person who has a claim to a title shot. You've got these fighters who feel like they're half a fight away, where it was like, okay, if the title wasn't booked right now, and if, you know, if the champion had no opponent, then maybe I could glide my way in there. Both of these guys are sort of in that position, and Pantoja himself could arguably say the exact same thing. He had a very close fight with Askarov, and honestly, if they made a 5-round fight of Pantoja versus Askarov, I would be here for it. And Pantoja versus Kara-France will be one of the great fights in UFC. That's something everybody would be excited for. It just feels like he is the odd third wheel, because all three of these fighters, to me, do have a pretty good claim to getting the title shot. Although Askarov was able to beat Pantoja, and he's sort of the other one in this triangle, that would put him ahead of Kara-France. But this is a great fight. But this is the way I think this fight's going to go. Askar Askarov is the more skilled fighter if we stack both guys' skills up next to each other. He's the better grappler. Defensively, I do worry about him a little bit, just because when he does throw his strikes, it does take him a little bit of time to bring his hands back. And against someone like Kara-France, his nickname's Don't Blink. And you don't get the nickname like Don't Blink by being slow as molasses. Like, Kara-France, when he decides to really throw his boxing combinations, there's not a lot that his opponents can do about it. And that's why I understand why Askarov's such a big favorite. I really do. Like, he is as talented as you could be in this division. But he's probably going to choose to strike until he's forced not to. And that's going to give Kara-France a great opportunity to win this fight, especially early. But if he isn't able to get that win early, we were able to see what Askarov was able to do to Benavidez as that fight went on. And like you said, Benavidez isn't near his prime. Not at all. But Askarov was able to build as that fight went on, and this is what I'll say. I wasn't sold on Askarov after the Benavidez fight. I don't think anybody in this division should be a minus 300 favorite over Kai Kara France, but if Askarov's able to look good in this fight, I will be the number one person at the front of the line saying he deserves a title shot because I will be completely sold.
So if there's like a line of salt near Vampire, can you go through the door? Or are you picking Askar Askarov, or are we staying outside?
So I think Askar Askarov's going to win. And if he does look impressive, I don't know why he wouldn't get the title shot next. I understand he might not be the most marketable guy in the world, but you're fighting at flyweight. None of the fighters are all that marketable, for being honest right now. Like, Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo are unique because they had a very strong rivalry, and they're two strong personalities who can sell the fight. But outside of those two, there's not a lot of household names at this division, which... hopefully this fight is amazing and both these guys get a lot more notoriety. But I do have Askarov, even though I do think the odds should be closer.
Big time fight coming up this weekend for me as well. I have Askarov. Again, I don't love him at a minus 300. He opened minus 200. I wish it was still there. But when I look at this one again, Kai Kara France has a great opportunity. He's speedy. He can mix in the kicks, but he doesn't fight kick heavy. He has good takedown defense, but Askar Askarov is one of those guys that just continues and continues and continues and has one of those motors. So for me, I do like Askarov in this spot. His striking's improved, but he's nowhere near the striker of Kai Kara France. But I really want to hear from the people because, again, Matt, we look at Tapology and what? 21% of the fans have Kai Kara France. I know there's going to be a ton of strong support down there in the comment section. I want to hear from you because, again, you're not wrong until Saturday night. And then after Saturday night, people like to just step on what you pick. But a big-time opportunity for both of these guys, and we're both going with Askarov in this fight.
Awesome fight, though.
Big-time co-main event, Joanne Wood taking on Alexa Grasso, and in the main event, Curtis Blaydes, Chris Daukaus. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks. We always say,
let's get into it.